Good evening. Welcome to Out There. I'm your host, Lori Joy. And my show tonight is about the Dowsers and their upcoming convention in the first week of August. And my guest is Rick Messier, who is the Publicity Director for all of this. I've been working with Rick for several months over the phone, and this is the first time we've met, and it's going to be a totally channeled show. We don't know what we're talking about. So, good evening, Rick. Welcome to Out There.
Nothing new. I never know what I'm talking about.
Okay. You shouldn't say that on the air. So, tell us a little bit about the Dowsers Convention and what that's going to, be this year.
The Dowsers Convention is it's actually our 35th annual convention this year. We started in Danville, Vermont in the early 1960s, and last year we moved to Lyndonville at the campus of Lyndon State College. So this is our second year there. This, as you mentioned, it's the first week of August. And anybody going to convention can expect, I forget, have you been? You've been before.
I've been. I went last year, and a lot of guests that have been on the show this year have been, from there, and we've talked a little bit about that, so.
You can get, I'm too used to asking questions.
I know, this is great. Well, let me ask you, okay? First of all, how did the Dowsers Conference start? Do you know that?
Yes,
35 years ago. I don't think you were here.
It started as part of a fall foliage festival. They wanted to do a demonstration for people attending the festival in Danville. So a group of dowsers got together and they went out and did some dowsing demonstrations and dug a well and said, look, we've got water. It's pretty exciting. So that's how it started, and it kind of evolved from there, and the ASD sprung out of that. And
the ASD is the American
Society of Dowsers, excuse me.
That's okay.
That sort of sprung out of that, and convention's been going strong for 35 years now.
And each convention has a theme. Am I correct on that? There's there's a theme.
Yes.
And I don't remember last year's. I just remember being overwhelmed.
Yes.
What is the theme this year?
The theme this year is full spectrum dowsing.
And what does that mean?
It means full spectrum dowsing is, well, actually it's interesting because it's a term that one of the ASD trustees, Bud Brookseeker, uses. He gave a talk last year called Full Spectrum Dowsing. Full spectrum dowsing actually means that we're talking about the basics, which is just on-site water dowsing. That's, the very roots of dowsing, all the way up through, who knows, the sky's the limit.
Really, I know that one of the things that I learned last year had to do with dowsing the grid patterns in the earth and bringing the energy, the ley lines.
Yes.
I knew a little bit about that, but I knew more. Are you going to be offering workshops on that at all this year? I mean, that's part of...
There's usually earth energies workshops and a lot of different types of energy workshops. I think one of the things that's really going to be big this year, and we've been talking about this a lot over the past couple of years, it's really skyrocketed, is labyrinths. That's one of the things that really seems to be jumping out in front. I've been seeing a lot of stuff. Of course, that's what I've been doing a lot over the last year or so. And the more you look around, the more you see. There's a couple of magazines now that have features on labyrinths, and there's all sorts of books coming out on labyrinths. And we've been doing labyrinths for the last few years at convention.
Marty Kane was just featured on the cover of Convergence magazine, and she's going to be there. Am I correct on that? She's been on the show. So.
Yes. As a matter of fact, she did a labyrinth last year using it's surveyor's tape. She pins it into the ground in the form of a labyrinth. Well, she did a 7-circuit. We had 2 7-circuit labyrinths last year.
Right, I remember that. I remember drumming for people going through the labyrinth. So.
And I hope this year, if Ross Jennings doesn't do one, I probably will. I'd like to have a shark labyrinth.
What is that?
It's a design that, actually there's a church out in San Francisco now that built it into the nave of the cathedral. It started in Chartres, France.
Right.
And it's a very famous cathedral in France. And
which is originally built on a druid, it's built on a druid grove, if I remember in all the history I've read.
And the Chartres labyrinth was built into the nave of that cathedral. As a matter of fact, in the cathedral there's the rose window.
Right.
If you collapse the rose window inward, the center of the window, I'm trying to remember this from the top of my head, collapses into the center of the labyrinth. It fits perfectly.
Wonder
It's
who
just an
thought of
interesting
that.
architectural.
That's really, you're always amazed when you read about these things.
Years ago, I don't remember how far back that cathedral goes or how far back the labyrinth in that particular one goes, but years ago, what you did in place of pilgrimage to Jerusalem, if you couldn't do that, what you did was you walked the labyrinth in the cathedral, usually on your knees, a number of times.
I'd not heard
And that was done in place of a pilgrimage to Jerusalem. And if you've ever walked a labyrinth, it is much like a pilgrimage.
Yeah, it is. Wayne London has one in his backyard. And is he going to be a speaker this year? Or?
I believe Wayne is speaking. I don't
Okay.
remember. He's going to be there, I'm sure.
I'm sure. With the focus on labyrinths and the focus on, dowsing, it's a real spectrum when you think about dowsing coming from the ancient old guys who were dowsing just for water to where it is
Everybody,
now.
it's one of those New England sort of things. I like to talk about us old-time New Englanders remembering the farmer who lived down the road and used to cut a little thing off his apple tree and go out and look for water. I think most old New Englanders, particularly, I'd say, I don't want to say Vermonters, but I mean, I grew up in Vermont, so I can say Vermonters, I think.
I grew up in New Hampshire. I'm a dowser.
Did you know a lot of dowsers when you were growing up?
My grandpa was a dowser, and he lived in Maine. So it's predominantly, I think, in New England where, you think of dowsers, the old.
Very firm roots in the earth, I think.
Yeah,
probably.
definitely. Now, with the full spectrum theme this year, who else could people think about who would be there? And what are they
You want me to
presenting?
get out my cheat sheet?
Well, you can get out your cheat
Give
sheet.
my little cheat sheet out and talk about who's going to be there. Well, part of the thing that's that we should talk about with the convention is the fact that we have schools.
Yeah.
We've had basic and expanded schools for a number of years now. One thing that we've started doing recently is having specialized schools, and we've got 4 of them this year. The basic dowsing school, we talked about themes. The basic dowsing school's theme is cyber dowsing, your information super pathway. Touching right into
Right into the computer.
Right into 90s stuff, yes, I have to like that. The first 2 days of convention are taken up by the schools. So
And
the
that's
first
Monday and Tuesday?
Tuesday and Wednesday.
Tuesday and Wednesday.
The first and the second are the schools. And the specialized schools this year include dowsing and neuro-linguistic programming with Ray Watson, who was a very popular speaker last year. He spoke on a couple of things, as I recall. He was very popular, so he's doing a specialized school this year. Full spectrum awareness is with Bud and Renee Brookseeker. Intermediate dowsing for balance and well-being is with Dawn Taylor and Janet Dunlap. That's also Tuesday and Wednesday. And the final school is spiritual dowsing with Dr. Herbert Parker. I don't know if you've had him.
Herbie Parker, I haven't had him on the show yet. He was going to be coming up.
Herbie Parker?
I call him
I
Herbie.
haven't heard that one.
Well, maybe, please forgive us. But